Hey y'alls, this is Solomon Rambling, and today we're still playing Angels of Death. It looks like I started back from where I left off in my last video, but that's a lie. It's actually not where I last left off. I have played through this entire floor, and I did a whole video on it, but we're still in the Adventures of Solomon Rambling in the Elgato software. It wasn't necessarily that there'd be glitched moments, but the whole thing was just messed up. It stuttered, the image was awful, sometimes it cut out entirely along with the my commentary. There we go. It was bad. It looked like a really bad knockoff of The Ring, and that's not something that anyone wants to watch, especially if it has the possibility of killing people in 7 days. So I played through the entire first part of the game so that I could get back to this singular section. It only took about 20 minutes because I basically button mashed all the way through, but I did do it for all of you because I love you in some strange way. Not the way that Danny loved Ray's peepers, but pretty darn close. So I'm going through the entire section, allowing you all to at least read the dialogue and what's going on. But I've already read it before, and so it's not very important to me. And this gives me actually an opportunity to provide commentary without pretending that I'm reading and talking at the same time. So, again, the intrigue of this floor is finding out who the killer is and what's going on. And the whole point of this floor is also develop a lot of the character and relationship between the two of them. And so that's at least what they're trying to do. I'm able to speak more about this because I've also followed what the anime looks like, and the anime is pretty good. Not like tremendously good, but good enough to at least be a watch for horror fans. It is interesting. The translation is incredibly better. For instance, Danny doesn't use peepers in the anime, he uses eyes. And everything seems to be better constructed, so to speak. So I like that element. It can get pretty scary. The visuals are very, very good. The pacing is hit and miss, and they try to inject too much humor into this horror game, which is a disappointment. I know that you want to be able to have some humor to break up the dreariness, but that's not good. So here we're actually going to see a bit of their humor. It's going to get there. Let's see. Oh, if you die, then give me a I'm dead to let me know. With this character, you hope he's sarcastic, but he's not. He meant that, and so he goes back and says the baka kind of stuff and shut up. And this is better handled in the anime because he really does appear dumb. He's dumb in this game. And as a character element, it's not necessarily that novel. You have a killer who's stereotypical, like the creepypasta Jeff the Killer, but who's infantile almost in his behaviors. And obviously has a chip on his shoulder and wants people to treat him, I guess, not be afraid of him. But then again, he doesn't like happiness, so he kills them. So there's all this random stuff that goes along here. Right now, we're learning that about our killer of this dungeon, and he's a kid, as you can make out with all this dialogue right here. And so it's so cute. Well, you keep reading that. And a lot of this is not a puzzle. This is just random button mashing on contextual clues until you figure out something that is relevant. See, I had to read both parts of that in order to be able to look under that eventually. Oh, well, I didn't get it fully. I forget exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to like look at everything and then, yeah, who knows? I swear I'm intelligent. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember. We have to find the torch, otherwise known as a flashlight. Once we have that, we can progress. Okay, Rachel. I apologize if I'm actually going through the dialogue pretty quickly. I realize I'm just kind of button mashing through it. But this is something that is captured in the anime and it's done pretty well. It has some weird aspects to it. So we're going to get to a part later on where we have Zach go crazy on all of the gravestones. And so it kind of goes into this rock soundtrack, which is ridiculous. Um, and that's kept in the anime, which is absurd in the moment, but they try to play it off as humorous. But again, humor isn't what I really want to see from this. We have a girl who is known for having dead eyes, who looks dead even though she's alive and wants to be killed. That's really somber stuff, and to break it up with these kind of slapstick jokes is a little bit ridiculous. I know we want to establish a relationship between the two of them, but it's hard to understand how they can create some chemistry between them. So they're having their little spat right now. The voice acting's pretty good in the anime as well, although the laugh is stupid, as it's stupid in here too. But there's also no cussing, which I think is a good choice. Again, we've had this conversation already in a Goner video. Cussing is relevant to some extent, can be used to create character, but for now it just seems like a cheap way of showing Zack's childishness, his vulgarity, when it could have been done so much better. He comes off as a whiny teen rather than this ominous person. And if they're trying to humanize him, I guess that works, but you also need to cheer for your characters, and right now he's unlikable. So we get our taste of being able to do the other characters. So he gets pissed off and wants to kill Graves because that's, his thing. His motives are kind of messed up. He's this chaotic person, but at the same time, he has this wounded past, and I don't like it. I don't appreciate it. So, characters are definitely not up to snuff. How could we change them? I guess Ray has a good start. I like the idea that she's this totally despondent teen. It's not so much angst, as I said previously, as it is something else. It's hollowness. I don't think the dialogue here captures it that well, but it tries its darned hardest. Okay, well, come on. Use your pickaxe. Nope. That's another problem I have with this game, other than the fact that the don't didn't have apostrophe in it, is that sometimes you have to take out the item in order to interact with something. I have never had more than one item in my inventory to begin with, apart from the handbag. And so for me to have to pick it out sometimes to activate a door is really stupid in my opinion, because otherwise I'm able to just grab it now. So now we're breaking everything. It has this wonderful guitar riff going on, and everything's red like your eyes are bleeding. Because by this point, you're at least crying tears because this stuff's not all that special. And I guess we're developing tone right now, but it's not doing much. It comes off as a bad mini game, which does what? Involve button mashing. You can see that I am just going through the dialogue as quickly as possible because he's essentially saying the same darn thing each time. It's irrelevant. And so that's not what I want from a video game series. So this covered a lot of what I discussed in my first attempt with this, but a lot more frustration. I'm calmed down now, but this is definitely a game that I can't play continually without being ready to gouge out my eyes. In a way, you can call this harmless, because if anything, it's just boring. It's not like absurdly difficult because of its stupidity. It's just nothing. Oh, that's right. The little shiny thing. Activate that so that we can help out Ray. And that's really disappointing, because there could be a rather novel story in this all, as we find with the anime adaptation. But it delves too much into cliches, and it's structured in such a way that is so linear that it gets boring. Like this. This was supposed to be a puzzle. She had the schematics, and maybe you could have done something with it. Instead, you just press A on everything once again. And that to me is just a huge problem. it is not a point and click adventure game if the purpose is just to click everything. That's like playing Picross, and every level is something that you have to fill in. It's a dot to dot where you can just connect the dots however you want to. Some metaphor that I can create. I don't even know. It's it's a walking simulator. I guess that's oft used frequently for this, but or for horror games in general. But that's pretty much what it is. I don't really have to think things through. It forced me to use my torch right there, so it's really brainless. So we can hear some things. It's ominous with this little flashlight, but nothing special. And see, we find another thing messed up with the translations. It calls them resumes. And what we find here is details of these people's lives, how they died, and what floor they died on. And we get some backstory on Zach as well. These aren't resumes, though. These are reports. These are case files. And by saying that they're resumes, I'm expecting job applications or something like that. Again, this is nitpicky, but it shows that there could have been so much more. Maybe the Japanese had something more potent, more powerful. And so when we're left with something like this that doesn't have much, it's disappointing. Here we're getting the backstory of Isaac, who came up being in a orphanage, and the orphanage was bad, and then he had burns on his face because of reasons and torture and that kind of stuff. So he went crazy and killed everybody. And I've now mentioned Jeff the Killer 3 times, and I feel it's a very appropriate comparison. To those who don't know what Jeff the Killer is, Jeff the Killer is a creepy pasta about an individual who went insane after he was bullied countless times. He was hit by acid or burned. I don't flippin' know. He has a really creepy, stupid face online if you Google image search him. But he's the type of guy that cut out his eyelids and cut his face and now goes and kills people randomly. And I can get where kids may enjoy this because he's kind of badass in their eyes that he was able to fight against the bullies. Again, these are some rather macabre aspirations for young kids, but back when I did some creepy pastas myself, I would review others to see if they could be accepted to a website. And a lot of these stories were about how kids were bullied and then they became murderers themselves. That they went through some transformation. They got jet black hair and all this stuff. None of them were written well, and they're all Jeff the Killer copies. What's interesting is that this is what appealed to all the youngians, at least at the time. I haven't been on that website for a while, but yeah, whatever. I think I submitted something to it like 3.5 years ago, but due to the user reviewed content, it still hasn't been rejected or accepted. That's a bad website if you ask me. So, going back to this game, it's almost better to see this as a light novel rather than a puzzle game or a point and click adventure. And considering it in that guise, it's a little easier to stomach the video game mechanics. Is this is not supposed to be a brain teaser. It's just purely supposed to tell a story. And then at that point, I kind of wonder why couldn't it be a little more like, I don't know, like Night in the Woods, where there's not necessarily game overs or huge puzzles. It's just straight adventure. That kind of ruins the point of moving around and figuring out which key goes to what. But I don't know. This is not a game, at least a good game. And I'm trying to figure out how you can improve it. In the anime series, they cut out a lot of this wandering, just focus on the main events, which again affects the pacing. But again, it's telling a story. It's almost better as a medium that you don't interact with. Yep. So they encounter each other, they say things to each other, yada yada yada. Nope, no news. I found a button, and that button relates to another button, so we have to press both buttons, but there's only one guy on this floor. So the question is, how did he ever manage the doors if there's two buttons and only one dude? Oh, here's the resume. Oh, that's right. If you didn't catch it yet, Zach is illiterate. Like, when I say he's dumb, he is dumb. Uneducated is probably the better term. So in many ways, he is this lost child. I don't really want to use that term to describe him because once you start killing that many people, you're not a lost child anymore. You're just a demented older person. He even describes himself as an adult male. And so take that for what you will. Um, what's interesting is anime comparatively runs at a pretty quick pace. By the time I finished in my last video, I had logged about an hour and 20 minutes. And in terms of the anime, I guess appropriately so, that took them only 2 episodes. It also says on the credits that I'm still only on chapter 1. So the question is, how long is this game? Does it get harder, or at some point does it just peter out? When does chapter 2 hit, so to speak? It could end right after this floor. I don't know. But there we go. We'll see. You killed her. How terrible. Oh, and here's supposed to be another funny moment. It's rather dark in the sense that she's saying, oh, if I follow that mentality, if I do what this other bitch, in this case, did, you'll kill me. And he's like, oh, no, no, I can't do that. Um, so far in this game, it appears that he's not killing her because of some random pet peeve, some kind of just arbitrary element. In the anime, it more appears that he's just really dependent on her. That without her, he is totally stuck down there. He's not so much whiny as, again, he's just blockheaded. Talked a lot about the anime. It'd probably be better if I just like watch the anime and talk about it instead of doing this. But this is where I am, people. So I hope you're enjoying it all. I almost coughed there. I've saved you all that painfulness. Oh, the master of this floor knows my desire. That's one aspect that I also don't quite approve of this game. The interactions between this floor's boss and our character are pretty awkward. It very much recalls, and we'll see it later, calls it almost a very violent relationship, which could be intentional, but it comes off as poor taste. We'll get to that later. Zach's having a little party. He sucks. Ah, this is one of my pet peeves too. Sorry, I am OCD like that. This gravestone being the only one left was bugging the shit out of me. That's not OCD. You're not OCD when something bugs you if it's a little bit dirty. You're not OCD if you need to alphabetize your books. You're not OCD if you like making sure your hands are clean. OCD is a very serious mental illness that is characterized by obsessions, like you have fixated. Like, not only do you need to clean your hands, but you need to make sure that every speck is gone. Even when there's nothing left, you got to do it again to make sure that they're extra clean. And so that's OCD. This is my little and obsessions go into the compulsions, which are the actual act of following the obsessions and making that kind of anxiety they feel go away. And so that creates the cyclical nature is a person doesn't really want to do these rituals such as cleaning their hands or rearranging cushions or resituating a chair or opening and closing a door. They don't want to do it, but they find out that it provides some relief if they do so. And so this mentality creates both discomfort and comfort, and they're stuck in the cycle. We can get more into this lecture, but that's beside the point. We're going to get back to this. I'll move off the mental health topic a little bit just to focus on what we're having here. This is supposed to be a rather poignant moment between the two of them. And you can be the judge of it yourself, whether you think it was powerful or not. So we'll get to it. Ooh, self-pitying. Don't worry about it. Okay, he's in the water. We learn that she doesn't want to kill herself because that's wrong in God's eyes, but that's a whole conundrum considering she's just using another person to kill herself. That's called assisted suicide. There was a dude that had to go to jail for trying to do that with people, so this is awkward, but we're not arguing philosophy there. That was on the bookcase earlier. So here it is. It's also, if I'm going to kill you, can you try to make it worth my while? Show anger or cry for your life. And Ray tries, but it doesn't work. And her face is kind of just frozen. And so, this is the moment. Here it is. Pause. Pause. Small smile. And the point is, her eyes are dead, even though she's smiling. I like that image. And I think that is a very meaningful exchange between the two. It's just that the atmosphere around it hasn't quite set it up to be as gut-wrenching as we may want it to be. That's a disappointment. Again, I'm just going to say anime from now on when I think you should go to the anime because it's better. So, anime. Anyway, back to the mental health thing. We touched upon earlier with Ray not, or the issue of Danny, who's a doctor, counselor, therapist. It's obvious that the person who made this game isn't familiar with those concepts, which is okay. There's always going to be issues like that. Like courtroom dramas aren't necessarily fully accurate, and other people are going to find problems with the movie, games, books, depictions. But when it's done so errantly inaccurate, it gets frustrating because these are real world issues, and to use them lightly for the psychological horror game kind of misrepresents how horrifying actual illness can be itself. Again, that's more social justice and all that crap. It doesn't matter much for here, but whatever. This is when we get more to the abuse in a relationship thing, and it's unsettling for sure. Let's read this one. If possible, I want you to devote yourself to me. I mean, isn't it great being in love? And it's creepy, that kind of concept. And the sad thing is, there's people with that mentality. I know all about you. You want to die, right? So preying on her wishes, and right so just say yes. That one really hit me as awkward because talking about consent and all that kind of stuff, forcing a person to say yes is not consent. Ugh, I've gotten into heavy subject matter. I apologize for all my viewers. Remember, self-deprecating humor. Just remember all those times when I used it, and you're good. So, we're going to focus more on the story in a bit because we're nearing the part where I stopped. We may even just end this video when we get to that section because with all the dialogue, this is still a pretty substantial video. Oh no, blinking lights. So it's also, I understand that this game is not able to maybe create the atmosphere it wants to due to the graphics. We got this 16-bit stuff that tries its darn hardest, but doesn't quite capture the moodiness. Then again, we've seen games that have these kind of visuals and can still come off as very frightening. You don't need elaborate character models or stuff like that. So, yeah, you're just criticizing the game more and more. Don't worry, dude. You're gonna meet somebody. We're gonna meet the Gravekeeper. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, I messed it up. There we go. You grave desecrator. There we go. We got our little character, Eddie, whose mask isn't really the best, well done stuff thingy. So it comes off as, I forget the horror movie villain, like this Halloween short story anthology. But it looks like a bad rendition of that. So now we have Zack wildly flailing in the dark while the two are talking about graves and banging Ray and all that kind of stuff. It's a strange love triangle, except everybody just wants to kill each other instead. That is how love works. At least in the Black Widow world stuff, I think. I don't know. So, we have this kid who says that he's close to Ray in her age, right there, but very much is a child due to the other information seen. It's really hard to guess this guy's age and really see him as a child because his diction is so eloquent. He used grave, described. Oh, look at sophistication. If anything, he comes off as a guy, a very nice guy, using the internet slang of nice guy, who thinks he's very intelligent. So, I think it's a lot of cringe factor rather than like ominous stuff. So, we have this. It'll go back to our heroine soon enough. And let's check the time. So, everybody, despite blazing through this, that's still a 20-minute episode, 28-minute episode, it looks like. So, we are going to finish this right now. I thank you all for watching, and well, bye.